Welcome to Social L Ministries, where we are committed to glorifying God while exposing the devil. This is part 2 of the series based on the parable of the 10 virgins. Sadly, many of you have been left behind as of this moment simply because you have been faithful to a person's ministry, but you have been unfaithful to what the Lord has for you. And much of the blame goes to your pastor, the one the Lord has entrusted to disciple you, to prepare you for what he has in store for you. So again, many of you have been left behind simply because you have been faithful to a person's ministry, but unfaithful to the things the Lord has in store for you. In Matthew 25, Jesus tells us the parable of the 10 virgins. It goes from verses 1 through 13, but I may not read the entire thing. And it states, Jesus said, "Then shall the kingdom of heaven be likened unto 10 virgins, which took their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom, Christ. And 5 of them were wise, and 5 were foolish. They that were foolish took their lamps, and took no oil with them. But the wise took oil in their vessels with their lamps." So they had oil in their lamps and also in vessels. But the foolish ones only took oil in their lamp. I'm going to pause here for a second. A part of why some of you are not where you're supposed to be, or where the Lord wants you to be, is because the pastor that you have submitted yourself to is responsible for putting oil in your lamp. That oil to get you ready for what the Lord has in store for you. In some cases, some of you are single because the Lord cannot send the spouse that he has ordained for you your way because you are woefully unprepared. That's because your pastor didn't prepare you. And that relationship isn't just for the sake of love, it's for the sake of a ministry. But the Lord can't send the person to you because you're so unprepared. Especially if the other person has the ministry going, but if he were to unite the two of you together, you would essentially be dead weight, and it would cause issues in the relationship. And until you get to a certain level, you are not ready to join the other person's ministry, the ministry the Lord has in store for you. In other cases, the Lord may have a ministry in store for you, and it has nothing to do with the relationship because you may already be married. But because your pastor isn't giving you enough oil, he's not preparing you to go out and do what the Lord has in store for you. So in a sense, you may be a superstar within that ministry, but you're basically a failure because you're not doing what the Lord has in store for you. And it is outside of that church. So where you are is not where the Lord wants you to be. And I'll continue. "While the bridegroom tarried, they all slumbered and slept." The bridegroom tarried. The bridegroom waited for them to get themselves in order, especially those 5 foolish virgins who did not have enough oil. He waited for them to get their stuff in order because when he showed up, or when he shows up, it's basically showtime. It is time to go. You have to be ready. And that's why one of the reasons why you have gotten left behind. In some cases, the Lord may have sent that person that he has in store for you, possibly to your church, but because you weren't ready, you had no contact with that person, and the person basically walked out of church, walked out of your life. Sometimes not to return. In other cases, you may get another chance. But it all comes down to your pastor, and is that person preparing you for what the Lord has in store for you. "And at midnight there was a cry made, Behold, the bridegroom cometh. Go ye out to meet him. Then all those virgins arose and trimmed their lamps." So now they're getting ready. You may be in a church and your pastor is telling you, get ready, get ready, get ready. But the pastor isn't getting you ready. The pastor isn't doing anything to prepare you to get ready, except say, get ready, get ready, get ready. And you're just stuck, unprepared for what the Lord wants you to do. The Lord already knows the outcome. So even if he sends the quote-unquote bridegroom or even the bride your way, it may be a test. And he may end up showing you a little bit later saying, if you had been ready the times before, you'd have been much further along than where you are. And it continues. And the foolish said unto the wise, give us your oil, for our lamps are gone out. There are times you may be wondering why other people are moving ahead of you. In some cases, it may be the Lord's plan. In other cases, it's because they took the time while the bridegroom was waiting to get their stuff in order, so that at a moment's notice, they could deploy into the ministry the Lord had in store for them. But it continues. But the wise answered, saying, not so, lest there be not enough for us and you. But go ye rather to them that sell and buy for yourselves. So now they're finally starting to get their stuff in order. Your pastor, from day one, should have been finding out what the Lord has in store for you and trying to get you ready for that, so that whenever the bridegroom comes, that you would be ready to leave at a moment's notice. And a part where some pastors get into trouble is they become so attached to a person or people within their ministry that when the Lord says, let go, they don't want to let go. And they end up falling in disobedience of the Lord. And you end up going the same place where the pastor is going. Basically, nowhere. And it continues. And while they went to buy, the bridegroom came, and they that were ready went in with him to the marriage, and the door was shut. Afterward came also the other virgins, saying, Lord, Lord, open to us. But he answered and said, verily I say unto you, I know you not. And then the Lord concluded by saying, watch therefore, for ye know neither day nor the hour wherein the Son of Man cometh. So basically, you won't know when your opportunity to be the person the Lord has called you to be will come. So if your pastor is telling you, get ready, get ready, get ready, you're going to find out exactly how do you need to get ready? What are you getting ready for? Some of you, you may feel it in your bones that you have missed an opportunity. And sooner or later, you will find out that you missed the opportunity because even though the bridegroom or even the bride had tarried, when the person showed up, when your opportunity showed up, you weren't ready, so you missed it. But there's more. And there's a reason why I put this a lot of this on the pastor's shoulders. Because in some cases, a pastor will use scriptures to keep you in bondage in that ministry as opposed to what the Lord wants you to do. In Hebrews 13, verse 17, and you may have heard this before, obey them that have rule over you, and submit yourselves, for they watch for your souls. And I'll pause here for a second. They watch for your souls. But remember, Philippians 2:12 instructs us to work out our own salvation with fear and trembling. So they're watching out for your souls, but you're responsible for your own salvation. If your pastor isn't doing what he or she needs to do, you have some responsibilities too, besides sitting in the pews, hearing, get ready, and not be prepared for anything that the Lord truly has in store for you. But it continues. So, for they watch for your souls, as they that must give account, that they may do it with joy, and not with grief, for that is unprofitable for you. So your pastor will have to give an account for his or her stewardship, to include his or her stewardship of you. Was a person preparing you? Is your pastor preparing you to serve in his or her ministry? Or is he or she only preparing you, or is he or she actually preparing you to do what the Lord has in store for you? Especially if that means you leaving his or her ministry. And it comes down to, is your pastor trying to build an empire? Or is your pastor, and I mean a personal empire, or is your pastor trying to build the kingdom of God? I'm going to mention about, or Hebrews 13:17 mentions about basically pastors having to give an account. we're reminded of the parable of the unrighteous steward in Luke 16. And it's an example of accountability and what will happen to some pastors who, quite frankly, they're failing you and they're failing God. And he, Jesus, said unto his disciples, there was a certain rich man which had a steward, and the same was accused unto him that he had wasted his goods. So the rich man is basically the Lord. The steward is your pastor, and the pastor may have been wasting your time, not getting you ready for what the Lord has in store for you. But by the way, back to the parable of the 10 virgins, in a lot of cases, your pastor may be giving you enough oil in your quote-unquote lamp so that it will last you maybe every 3 to 7 days. So that pastor wants you in church every time the doors are open, because that's how much they'll give you. Enough to last you for a few days, enough to keep you in the pews. You should be able to miss a month of church and still be in right standing with the Lord, because a pastor is giving you so much that is like solid food that just keeps on feeding you. Not like a little glass of milk where you drink it, you may be satisfied for a little while, and then shortly afterwards you're hungry again. It has to be solid food, solid spiritual food. But back to here with the steward who has been accused of squandering those goods. And he called him and said unto him, how is it that I hear this of thee? Give an account of thy stewardship. So time back to Hebrews 13:17. Give an account of thy stewardship, for thou mayest be no longer steward. Thou mayest be no longer a pastor over my sheep. Then the steward said within himself, what shall I do? My Lord taketh away me from my stewardship. I cannot dig. To beg, I am ashamed. There's some pastors out there who are very anointed, but all they can really do is preach. And it's a matter of lacking life skills to have a job besides being a pastor. I'm going to curb my tongue. And the steward continued, I am resolved what to do, that when I am put out of stewardship, when I am put out of this church, when I'm no longer the pastor, they may receive me into their houses. So he called every one of his Lord's debtors unto him, and said unto the first, how much owest thou my Lord? And he said, 100 measures of oil. And he said unto him, take thy bill, sit down quickly, and write 50. So the steward is making friends with his lord's, his master's debtors. So at that point in time, well, he was not about his father's business, so to speak, like Jesus said in Luke 2 when Mary and Joseph found him in the temple. So the steward, the pastor, was not about his heavenly father's business to begin with. And now it's even worse, because that man, for example, owed the master 100 measures of oil. But in order to appease the man as opposed to his master, he had given him a 50% discount. He was robbing his master. And then he said to another, and how much owest thou? And he said, 100 measures of wheat. And he said unto him, take thy bill and write 80. 80. And the Lord commended the unjust steward, because he had done wisely. For the children of this world are in their generation wiser than the children of the light. The Lord, meaning the master, commended the unjust steward because he recognized what he was doing. It doesn't mean that it was a good thing. it doesn't mean that the master approved of the steward giving away his property. But again, he realized what the steward was doing for self-preservation. There are many pastors who are doing things, and it is for self-preservation. In some cases, a pastor may know that you have a calling on your life, and rather than preparing you for the calling, he or she may try to promote you within the church. But the promotion is not to prepare you for what the Lord has in store for you. It is to keep you in bondage within that church. So when the bridegroom shows up, you will still be unprepared for what the Lord has in store for you. Which is why some pastors will have to pay the price when the Lord asks them to give an account of those sheep, the congregants. And when I mention about the children of the world being wiser than children of the light, you want to be a child of the light, a child of God. So that steward was also demonstrating that he was a child of the devil. And I say unto you, make yourselves friends of mammon, basically God of money. I'll say that again. And I say unto you, make to yourselves friends of mammon of unrighteousness, that when ye fail, if you're an unrighteous steward, you will fail. And having friends of mammon, that is not a good thing. That they may receive you into everlasting habitations. You don't want to go into the habitations with the friends of mammon. This is another scripture where pastors will use, that the pastors will use to keep people in bondage in their ministry, which is actually blocking them from doing what the Lord has called them to do. But for as much as what I'm going to read next applies to the congregants, it also applies to the stewards, the pastors. He that is faithful in that which is least is faithful also in much. And he that is unjust in the least is unjust also in much. If therefore ye have not been faithful in the unrighteous mammon, who will commit to you, or commit to your trust, the true riches? The mammon, those are the earthly things. So yes, for example, there are people who are called to different types of ministries. In some cases, your ministry may be in your workplace. And for that, you may have a boss who is ungodly. Your environment, your work environment may be ungodly. But as a child of light, your calling is to be the light in that dark place. So part of your ministry may be a workplace ministry. And with you going to church, you're supposed to be getting that oil so you can be the light even in the dark world at your place of employment. But if your pastor isn't preparing you adequately, you won't be prepared to deal with those things. And going to work may literally be spiritual warfare every day. So if you're going to a church and your pastor never talks about spiritual warfare, never talks about the enemy, always giving you feel-good messages, and you go to work feeling beat up, your pastor is failing you. And it continues, and if ye not have been faithful in that which is another man's, who shall give you that which is your own? And that is verse 12 of Luke 16. That's one of those things where those pastors will keep people in bondage, saying you have to be faithful in his or her ministry before the Lord will give you your own. And they may give you those promotions, like I said before, but those promotions aren't to prepare you for what the Lord has in store for you. They are to prepare you to keep you in bondage. So if you know that you've been called to be an evangelist, the pastor knows you've been called to be an evangelist. You're both in agreement to it, but the pastor isn't preparing you to go outside the church and evangelize. Some of you know exactly what I'm talking about, and I hope that as you're listening to this, that it's resonating with you, that something isn't quite right. If the only people you're evangelizing to are those within your church walls, something is wrong. If anything, you should be going out and helping to bring people to that pastor's ministry. But because the pastor is so consumed with building a personal empire as opposed to the kingdom of the Lord, he or she is not preparing you adequately for your kingdom assignment, and that person's ministry may be suffering as a result of that without the individual even knowing it. And the Lord continued, "No servant can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold the one and despise the other. Ye cannot serve God and mammon," the God of earthly pleasures. So before the Lord, the master in the parable, commended his servant because of his ways of mammon, but the Lord ended this by letting us know that we cannot serve two masters. In some cases, you may be in a church and you're doing everything the pastor has assigned you to do, but you feel conflicted inside because something is telling you that the Lord has more in store for you. One of those things that the pastor is using to keep you in oppression is by letting you know that you have to be faithful in his or her ministry. And when the right time comes, then the Lord will release you. In a lot of cases, some of you are like those 10 virgins, but you're among the five who did not have oil in their lamp when the bridegroom showed up, and they got left behind. And when they finally got things together, it was too late. So yes, you may be faithfully serving in a person's ministry, and the Lord may have something in store for you that he or she, or correction, that the Lord may have something in store for you, and he cannot release you into that thing because you are not ready. And if the Lord were to release you into the assignment, I won't say it will fail, but there will be tremendous challenges, more so than if you are fully prepared for that assignment. If your pastor is telling you, get ready, get ready, get ready, is he or she getting you ready for what the Lord has in store for you? Or is he or she abusing his or her spiritual authority, using scriptures to keep you in oppression? You are helping the pastor to fulfill his or her destiny while yours is suffering. Even though at the same time, that pastor's destiny is going to be suffering because that pastor is not doing what he or she is supposed to do. And the same way the oil in your lamp is running out is the same way the oil in the pastor's lamp is running out. And you won't be the only one getting left behind. Don't get left behind, please.